Welcome to NHL Quick Hits. I'm David Crosby here with Steele Roden, and we are down to the final four in the Stanley Cup playoffs. And for the first time all year, these teams are facing an opponent outside of their own division. Let's break down the semifinal series between the New York Islanders and Tampa Bay Lightning. This is a rematch of last season's Eastern Conference Finals, where Tampa defeated New York in 6 games and went on to win the Stanley Cup. The Lightning may have one of the most unparalleled similarities to last year's Stanley Cup winning roster of any recent defending champion. And a healthy Steven Stamkos makes this offense even more potent than it was last season. The Islanders are without captain Anders Lee, but a few key additions for New York have made a big impact for them so far in these playoffs. Let's start, Steele, with the number one item on the Islanders' to-do list. Minimize the impact of Tampa's red-hot power play, whether that's staying out of the box altogether, which the New York Saints did pretty well against Boston there in round 2, or somehow fixing their struggling penalty kill. Preferably, it would be a combination of both. New York cannot win this series if they allow the Lightning's playoff best power play to keep lighting it up. So, Steele, the answer so far in the playoffs has been no, but can this power play be stopped?
No, I don't think it can unless they can figure out a way to just not take any penalties in general and make sure Tampa Bay is not on the power play in any of these games. But it's easier said than done. So in that game one, they only had 2 power plays and they still scored on one of them. So like you said, even if you give them just one opportunity, they're going to take full advantage of it. And like we've talked about so often, they just have so many options to go to. You have Victor Hedman running the power play on the blue line. You have Stamkos and Kucherov that are either going to pass it to Braden Point in the middle or just one-time it right to the back of the net. And then guess who's there to get the rebound? Alex Killorn. So like we've talked about, there's so many options there for the Tampa Bay Lightning to just, go to. If one thing's not working, they can move to the next thing. But the New York Islanders, they're going to have to play some of the cleanest and most perfect hockey we've ever seen the New York Islanders play. And I'm not saying that they can't be gritty. I'm not saying that they can't be physical. But you have to be careful and watch where your stick is at all times. No stupid penalties. No delay of game penalties. Those will be costly mistakes for the New York Islanders moving forward and putting that team on the power play. If you put the Lightning on the power play even just once, they will take full advantage and they will make you pay. So you have to be careful at all times. But again, you play the game that the New York Islanders have been playing all postseason long. You just got to be careful with those very silly and stupid penalty calls.
Yeah, on its face, this is a classic offense versus defense series. But in the postseason, the Islanders have actually outscored the Lightning in goals per game, and Tampa has allowed fewer goals against per game than New York. After a tough first round, Semyon Varlamov has won 4 straight. He finished last series with a .928 save percentage in those last 3 games. And Andrei Vasilevsky has looked every bit of the world's best goaltender. You mentioned game 1. They were both fantastic. To this point, the Islanders have also been getting some great production from their top 2 lines. But can they keep up with that star-studded lineup from Tampa? Nikita Kucherov, Steven Stamkos, Braden Point, Victor Hedman, you've listed them off. The talent there is just incredible, but is it insurmountable for New York?
Yeah, I think they can. And, like we just talked about, I think if they can stay off the penalty kill, they have a really good shot at winning this series. And like I've been saying all postseason long, I think great defense generates great offense. And we saw that in game 1 on that first goal from Matt Barzal. Steven Stamkos on the offensive blue line making a couple of costly mistakes, just not very careful with the puck. And he threw it down in the slot area where who was there? Josh Bailey in perfect position, head up on the ice, and Matt Barzal's coming off the bench, streaking down his offensive blue line. A perfect pass from Bailey, and he goes down and scores 5-hole on Vasilevsky. So like I've said all season long, when you're playing great defense, that can generate and turn into great offense. And that's exactly what we saw on the first goal from Matt Barzal. He ripped it 5-hole on Andrei Vasilevsky, who doesn't let a lot of 5-hole goals actually. And that was the first goal. And then Scott Mayfield just a one-timer later in the game to make it 2-0, and then ended up winning the Islanders winning 2-1. But like I said, great defense generates great offense. And if they can continue to do that and stay off the penalty kill, they have a really good shot at winning this series against the defending champ, Tampa Bay Lightning.
Now, this is not meant as an insult to Jon Cooper, but I think one of New York's biggest advantages in this series is behind the bench. You've been preaching the gospel of Barry Trotz all season long, but this series might just test how much of an impact a coach can have. Do you believe in Trotz's ability to pull some tricks out of his sleeve and make the necessary adjustments to upset the Bolts?
I think Barry Trotz is one of the best head coaches I've ever witnessed in my life. And I'm putting him right up there with Joel Quenneville as well when he was with the Chicago Blackhawks and even what he's done with the Florida Panthers the last couple of seasons. But Barry Trotz is probably one of my favorite coaches to watch out there. He's just so keen on playing a defensive game. And that's why I keep saying what I say, and great defense generates great offense. And we saw that when he was with the Washington Capitals. We're seeing it even more now with the New York Islanders. I have every bit of faith for Barry Trotz to make those calls, make those adjustments to make sure those top guys on the Tampa Bay Lightning aren't getting the opportunities that we saw when they played against the Florida Panthers in the first round, and then, of course, the Carolina Hurricanes in the second round. So I have every bit of faith in Barry Trotz to make those adjustments. But once he does, it's up for the players to go out there and execute it. So I believe in Barry Trotz, and I believe in those players to execute it because they've done it so far against in those first two rounds.
All right, Steele, give me an X factor for each side in this series that you think could tilt that matchup in their team's favor.
Well, for the New York Islanders, I think the X factor has to be Semyon Varlamov. And, in that first round against the Pittsburgh Penguins, we saw the New York Islanders going to Ilya Sorokin and Varlamov, see who was getting their mojo in the better groove right there. And they stuck with Sorokin, and he won a dogfight, especially with Tristan Jarry not being on the best of his game as well. But I'm not going to get into Jarry right now. But with Ilya Sorokin taking over that first round series, I think it gave a little bit of comfort to Semyon Varlamov. And then in that second round series, he just went full tilt and full gear and put pedal to the metal and won that against the Boston Bruins. And he's continuing that. We saw that in the first game against the Tampa Bay Lightning. I think he will need to continue to be that way, especially if the Islanders are not on the penalty kill so often. He's going to be the biggest X factor for the New York Islanders. And then over to the Tampa Bay Lightning, I think it has to be Brayden Point. I think we saw a little bit more of him in the Carolina Hurricanes series. I think we're going to need a little bit more out of him in this series just because of how great defense the New York Islanders play. He wasn't getting the opportunities that we're used to seeing him get so many times. So I think Brayden Point and Semyon Varlamov are my two X factors in this series.
Some great choices there, Steele. Let's see if the great choices continue. How do you see this series playing out?
Well, I've got Islanders in 6, and I'm the only one out of all my friends that I've talked to that had Islanders winning the first round, had Islanders winning the second round, and have Islanders winning the third round and going all the way to the Stanley Cup Finals. Everyone else had them out to right. They weren't getting past the first round. So I have Islanders in 6. I just have full faith in Barry Trotz. Like we've talked about, a couple of guys that we thought were going to step up and fill that gap that Anders Lee when he went out to injury. Guys like Anthony Bovilio, J.G. Padro. You mentioned Kyle Palmieri, who I wasn't too sure of, but I was wrong on that. He had some huge goals for them in that second round series against the Boston Bruins. So guys like that have really stepped up their game and really filled that hole when Anders Lee went out to injury. So guys like that have really stepped up, and I've got Islanders in 6.
Well, they're definitely making you look smart after that performance in game 1. I was kind of torn on this series as well. It's a difficult matchup for Tampa because no matter what, the Islanders force you to play their game. And I know that Tampa can play that defensive style as well, but they're just not going to open it up like they're used to doing against so many opponents. However, I just feel like the talent is going to win out here for Tampa Bay. I've got the Lightning in 7 games. I've been a little cold lately, so maybe if you're out there listening, rock with Steele on these series predictions, because I got to admit, he's been torching me lately. But that's going to do it for today's episode. On behalf of Steele Roden, I'm David Crosby, and thanks for tuning in to NHL Quick Hits.